Last week on Tales of Eldelórne, Fionna succeeded in finding herself far away from home. Well, let's see how that's working out for her. Tales of Eldelórne, Book 1, Chapter 15, Friends Like That, by the mistress of fun and fantasy, Karleigh Bon. Yeah. Well, on with the show. Despite their rough beginning, Fionna found the commander to be most reasonable. She asked to stay on at the fort, hoping to learn more. The commander was a wealth of information concerning the Eldelórne. She was also fascinated by the military compound that was high on the cliffs, so she made herself useful. Fionna learned how to bandage minor cuts and bruises for the men. She used her magic staff to keep the torches burning at night, and she even took over the kitchen and cooked great-tasting food that was well appreciated by the men. She was respectfully called Lady Fionna by all the cadets. As time passed, she had become a welcome addition. It took a while for the commander to feel comfortable with Fionna. He was secretly delighted when she decided to stay. Rovach had changed so much in his long life, and the creeping age of the mortal realm had grown desolate for him. This he hardly noticed until Fionna showed up like a sudden splash of color, reminding him of the life that he had forgotten. He felt kinship with this impetuous female wizard elf. Rovach cringed as he sat down in his large, comfortable chair by the hearth. They could smile about that first meeting now. Looking back, he regretted not having more patience with her. Rovach found, deep down, he missed his family, even though they were but a distant memory. He would never admit how Fionna's presence warmed his heart, not even to himself. I was told once by my uncle the curse and blessing of long life, and he spoke truth. Long life can be tedious indeed, Rovach reflected during their customary evening visit by the hearth. I thought I was the only Eldelórne left. It has been good to have met you. Rovach stared at the fire, nursing a cold ale in his old beat-up tankard. Fionna was happily sipping from her own mug while curled up in another soft chair that he had set near the hearth for her. Fionna liked hearing his soothing low voice. She smiled at him and continued to drink and listen to another of his many war stories. Ro had many long memories to share about battles he was involved in. He also spoke of humans and elves he once knew. Strangely, he never spoke of his family. Fionna's mind drifted into planning a letter to Drustenlach. She missed her papa and wondered if they were both all right. Ro broke into her thoughts by asking, "Can I do something for you that was tradition among my kin?" "I don't know. What is it?" she asked, looking a bit flustered. "Nothing I'm sure you could not handle." He smiled at her, knowing her formidable temper, as he stood up and drew a comb out of a chest near the hearth. "You mean to comb my hair?" Trying not to feel the awkwardness, Fionna set her empty mug down on the floor next to her chair. "Yes." His eyes were gentle as he spoke. Unless I'm too forward, forgive me. He hesitated. It's just that you have such beautiful red hair as my mother did. I would show you how she wore it. He was sincere in his gesture. No, please. It's okay. She invited him to continue. Funny, I never thought of you as having a mother. Sorry, I know everyone has one. It's just that you never mentioned your family before, Fionna said curiously. There is naught to say after so much passage of time. Ro's words drifted off as he concentrated on his task. He hadn't handled any but his own basic braids in hundreds of years. Only the commander's nearest officers, or the few humans he trusted, knew of his Edelin blood. He hid his ears inside braids and under a uniform hat when entertaining strangers at the training post. His large fingers worked expertly, plaiting the sides and creating the intricate weave that would tame Fiona's wild locks. It felt right as his hands fell into the rhythm of the braid. No one had touched her hair since those last days in Drustenloch. Memories of EJ flooded her mind, and Fionna felt wistful. Your ears will show to men maybe this is not such a good idea, Ro was asking, with a sudden look of concern on his face. I do not mind, she said. I'm proud to be, myself. Ejlum had said these exact words to her long ago. And I have a hat, she snorted softly to herself, feeling sentimental. There, it is done. Rovash smiled triumphantly. Looking in the mirror at her beautifully braided hair, a stunned Fionna said her first words in Elvish since leaving home. Istod pered Edelin? Yes, of course I do speak this tongue. And how is it you know my clan's dialect? Ro answered her with the language as she had learned it. EJ had told her each clan had its braiding tradition. Rovash had just braided her hair in that exact same manner as he, and the language was the same. Are you from near Ilian Henny? She asked him with a puzzled look on her face. Yes. And how is it you can guess this? He frowned, looking confused at her. Elvenkin all know how to braid each other's hair when it is needed. You cannot move through the trees efficiently if your tresses keep getting caught up in the branches. They both spoke those last words in unison, just as EJ had taught them to her. I cannot see how you could be from the same clan, Fionna said out loud to herself. My mother said those exact very words to me. A sudden realization struck Rovash like a thunderbolt. He fell to his knees as if Fionna were Queen Galbraith herself standing before him. I am struck low, having lost all hope that my brother would ever be found. Fionna just stood there, staring, with her mouth gaping open. Please, understand, Fionna. I am joyed to hope that my search through all of time will soon end, and my faith in my brother's survival has not been in vain. He bowed his head as if the executioner's axe was going to douse his hopes with the true death. Fionna lifted his face and looked into terrified eyes. They stared stunned in that moment. Ejlum is your brother? Fionna asked quietly. Ro's eyes grew even wider at the sound of his brother's name. Taking that as confirmation, she said, He is my friend. Then he lives. Yes, he does, she said, releasing Ro's face. He is fragile of mind and spirit because of his journey of over 470-some years in the realm of Ilmatar. Then it is true what Lady Galbraith told me. He had disappeared from this realm. Do you think he will see me Ro moaned. EJ had the belief in his mind that your mother's weakness was his fault. It was not, she said firmly, her eyes flashing. She surprised herself at how protective she felt. He was quite broken, she trailed off, remembering the horror of that memory. She looked back at Ro, who was on the verge of tears. I'm sure he would be joyed to see his own brother, Rovash, she said softly. Her hand stroked the side of his face and hair to console him. There was a misunderstanding between us. I was too harsh. Ro shook his head as he got up and turned away. The big man slumped himself over into his chair, covering his face with his hands. Fionna suddenly realized EJ's brother must be part of the reason he suffered through so much distress when he came back into his awareness. Tell me then the whole story, Fionna spoke, with a tired voice already guessing in her mind what had happened. She sat down in the chair next to him near the hearth. Rovash told her every detail he remembered. Fionna was mostly right in her assumptions, as Ro's memories spilled out, filling in the missing puzzle pieces. The tale was one of elfling half-brothers and the persistent strife among their peers, and the bias against their bloodline. Their mother faded unnoticed by them, and they found themselves in shock, watching her being taken away. I loved her. She was my mother. It was my failure as her eldest son. I let myself be so caught up in such petty, unimportant problems and did not pay attention. And then it was too late. Ro cried out angrily with himself. If that was not bad enough, I dishonored her last wishes and spoke the angry words that caused my brother's disappearance. I should have loved him enough to comfort him, but instead I was more than unkind. His big voice broke off, and he was unable to speak any further as the pain of old memories crashed into his heart. Fionna felt such sadness for both of them. They were just youths, caught up in so much misunderstanding. You were both elflings, Ro, she tried to comfort him. She stood up and walked over to where he was sitting in his chair. The giant commander of men broke down again for his brother's sorrow. He hugged the small elf girl before him, sobbing into her shoulder. Fionna did not realize until that moment how much Ijla meant to her. She missed his smiling face and stupid jokes, and she found herself crying too. Time had escaped her, and it had been most of a year gone by since she left him so far away. The burning reasons for her need to leave now eluded her, and she shook her head sadly. Fionna yearned to see EJ and hear his voice again. We will go to see him together then, you and I. You will see. It will be all right, Fionna assured her friend, trying to give him hope. After Fionna left Ijlam, he ventured out to the city. He wanted to prove to himself that he was strong and worthy of this life. Being in the capital city around humans was not easy. He was not up to speed, and the kingdom of men was a strange and different place. One thing that did remain the same: monsters were still bold as the sun went down. EJ was on his way back to the wizard's home after spending time observing those humans in the city, when a scream in the dark caught his attention. Across the span of a field, the guard were fighting a trio of wild ogre. EJ knocked 3 arrows, boldly letting them fly. 2 of the beasts fell instantly silent to the ground. Having only 1 ogre gave the men advantage enough to finish it off quickly. "Who are you there?" the leader called out. Ejlum had already started walking home and thought to disappear into the trees. "Wait," the man shouted again, seeing the shadow archer turn. "I want to thank you for your timely aid in this matter." The trouble was, without the aid of wizards' magics or Fiona's mind speak, Ejlum only understood half the words the humans spoke. He thought they required more help, so he stopped and watched as the men picked up their injured companion. An ogre had dislocated the man's knee in the fight. He cried out in pain, trying not to put weight on the leg. "We could use someone like you in the guard," the leader said, but was stunned when their torchlight showed them the unbelievable sight of a living Edelin. Filled with compassion for the injured, Ejlum forgot his hood was off, revealing his ears, as he stepped forward. Kneeling down, he lay hands on the deformed knee. He felt familiar ethereal lights around him as he focused on the human. The joint made a loud popping sound as it cracked back into place. Everyone gasped as the man jolted forward as if struck in the belly. "The pain is gone," the man said as he shook himself loose from the ones holding him up. "'Tis a blessing," he shouted as he bobbled around happily, almost tripping over his own feet. "You're Edelin," the captain of the night guard stated. "Dia Melin," he added. "Desulan," Ejlum slightly bowed in formal greeting. Sul, one of the younger guards, pushed through the group, taking over the conversation in Elvish. "My name is Kale," he formally bowed. "My captain wanted to thank you for your timely intervention," Kale said. "I am Ejlum. My common tongue is weak," EJ confessed, relieved this one named Kale could communicate. "We are all surprised to find Edelin here. Where are you from?" Kale asked at his captain's prompting. "I am from here," EJ pointed in the direction of the wizard's home. Not understanding the literal mindset of the Edelin, it probably seemed to the men like he may have been living in one of the trees that lay between here and there. Seeing their puzzled expressions, EJ added, "A small cottage beyond these trees, where your healer lives. I live there as well." "Of course," Kale sighed. "The healer's apprentice," he told the captain. "Now it all makes perfect sense." Kale asked Ejlum to come to the castle proper on the morrow to meet with him and the captain again. He wanted to discuss giving Ejlum a position in the guard. EJ nodded his head in acknowledgement before sprinting away toward Fargles to tell him the news. Ejlum found himself working the night brigade that patrolled surrounding land outside the city walls. He was relieved to be doing something important where trees grew. The men found EJ easy enough to get along with, so they didn't fault him for not being able to speak the common tongue very well. After all, their queen was a half-elven woman. Those who worked among the guard still knew elves were part of the realm. His ears were hidden under a guard helm most times, so humans he worked around in the city never realized he was elven. Although he was found to be good-natured, EJ never really laughed or smiled very often. As he concentrated on the work given to him, he was still haunted by feelings of homesickness and dreamed of the day Fionna would return. Maybe she would accompany me back to Eldelórne, he mused to himself, but his heart felt heavy with such thoughts. For now, work was a fine distraction. Most of a year had gone by. Ejdlum could barely endure the desolation of being alone. His life went on, but his heart felt as if it was gone from him. "You need to find Fionna," the wizard Fargle said one evening. "It was her desire to leave us. I cannot break my oath. I told her I would be here when she returns." Ejdlum stubbornly recited his memory, as if that was the final word on the subject. Fargle could see he struggled with his promise. "I will not believe that she meant to be gone for so long. Something may have happened to her," the wizard said, raising his brow. He looked sadly down at the table in front of him. With the wizard's worry brought to his attention, EJ was suddenly concerned as well. "So you say I should go to Velavar then?" "Yes, I think so. I'm too old to make the journey myself." Fargle coughed a little, trying to make himself sound feeble, as he watched Ejdlum stand up abruptly and pace around. "Then I shall travel this road for you." EJ was excited for a way to go to Fionna and technically not break his oath. "I will send word when I discover the truth, be it good or bad." His brow knit in a grim expression, thinking about how bad it could be. "Here, take these. I have something for you," the wizard said, as he got up and motioned for EJ to follow him across the room. Fargle walked over to his workplace and clanked several bottles out of the way. He brought out a dusty old wooden box and blew the thick dirt off into the room. Ejdlum started to cough and tried to wave the cloud away. He was struck by bright light as the wizard lifted the lid. Inside was a set of glimmering gold rings. Wizard runes, alive with fire, were etched along the inside curves of them. The outside finish of the rings flowed with the mesmerizing motion of an ocean current. "Wear them always," Fargle warned, motioning for EJ to take them. "Thank you, Master," Ejdlum said with innocent enthusiasm. Both rings calmed as he slipped them onto his left thumb for safekeeping. "Give one to Fionna when you find her. They afford protection from flame and will aid your stamina. That is, if you ever find yourself under attack, my boy." Fargle smiled knowingly at Ejdlum. "You know, monsters continue to be abundant in the land, especially after the sun goes down," he added as an afterthought. EJ nodded enthusiastically. "I am sincerely glad you brought me back to this realm, though at the time it did not seem as so." EJ smiled at Fargle. "I know, boy. This is a second chance for you to fulfill your true destiny, so do not waste it." Ejdlum was suddenly alarmed. "Destiny? What destiny, wizard? Tell me truth." Everyone has a destiny, EJ. Fargle chuckled wearily. It is only a figure of speech. Fionna and Rovash have become fast friends. That's great. In the meantime, back at the ranch, EJ is making friends with humans back in the city of Drustenlock. Did anybody notice how that wizard seems to be a slippery one? Faking a cough so he can send EJ out on a quest. Something's up, and it's not a raise in pay. We'll be back next Thursday at our regular time for another episode of Tales of Eldelórne, your fantasy fix of the week. Ta-ta for now, my rabid readers. And be safe out there in your RL. Elvish lesson of the day. Where the word melon means friend, melin means friends in the plural form, and it's spelt with a Y, Mellyn. So when the captain says diamelin, he's trying to tell EJ, you are with friends. I think it's okay if you use it in a less formal way by saying melinamine. That means my friends. There you are. Melonamine, my friend. Hey, you're getting really good at this. Hey, did you know you could check out a copy of Tales of Eldelórne? Call your local library and request it. Having books in libraries means more reviews, more readers, more word of mouth. And most libraries have online sites, so you don't even have to leave home to do it. All the information you need to order a book from a library is on karleighbon.com. Thank you for listening. Today's story was a long one. Let me know how you like it by leaving me a voice message or sending me an email. You can always find me through karleighbon.com. Yeah, it's a thing.